diversity is healthy. I think the real work is creating understanding and creating a label for this and an awareness so that when it's going on in a group, we can appreciate the highly sensitive voice that's in the room.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I bring a very special guest. And energetically, I think you'll feel a sense of calm, a sense of peace just from her energetics. And she's got a very special power, the power of sensitivity. And how she uses this superpower to work with high achievers and athletes is mind-blowing. And I think you should definitely check out this episode. But if you are new to the Thrive State Podcast, welcome in. This is really a show where I bring together thought leaders and experts in this space of health, wellness, longevity, performance, relationships, so that we can get the tools, the tactics, the mindsets to become better versions of us. I really take pride in curating the best people that I think or know will give you great value to your own life. So if you're new to the podcast, thank you so much. Please subscribe. For those that have been listening to the podcast for a while, thank you for being such a loyal listener. I truly appreciate it. If this podcast has given you value, if it's helped you in your life, if it's allowed you and your family to get a new perspective or new tools to improve on your life, please help this podcast grow by leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. And if you haven't already, pick up the second edition of Thrive State at thrivestatebook.com. It has hit the #1 bestseller category on Amazon, and I'm super proud of it. In the first edition, you really learn about the 7 pillars that most affect the energetics of your body. And here's the thing, the energetics of our body, who we choose to be, the energy that we are, is felt in every single cell in our body. So it gives our cells the signals to thrive or to get into a stress and survive state. But get this, in the second edition, I talk about why this energetic is so important, why the people who are in Thrive State tend to be more resilient no matter what is happening in their life. Change, a virus, a pandemic, stresses from everyday life. The second edition also talks about how our energy is really a catalyst and can ripple into our families and our relationships and our organization and businesses. And finally, the second edition also talks about the things that hold people back from actually becoming their best self. In fact, we talk more about that on this episode as well. What are some of those things? What are some of the things that we layer on top of ourselves that cover up the limitless beings we are? So make sure you pick up a copy of the second edition of Thrive State at thrivestatebook.com, which brings me into our current guest, Jona Genova. She has the superpower of being sensitive. And let me just clarify right now, being sensitive doesn't mean being extra emotional. Jona actually believes that sensitivity is a superpower. She's actually a performance coach to professional athletes and exceptional innovators and helps the ultra elite actually understand and access sensitivity, what she describes as a Spidey sense, so that they could actually tap into their limitless nature. She's actually worked with NFL teams, including the LA Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Seattle Seahawks, as well as with individual coaches and players across the NFL. Her diverse background includes brain research, a stint in Wall Street, creating some of New York City's coolest restaurant and nightclub concepts. With over 30 years of Tibetan Buddhist study and practice under her belt, her meditation classes has actually been featured in Good Morning America, the LA Times, and the book Unplug, a simple guide to meditation for busy skeptics and modern soul seekers. Prior to working with elite athletes, Jona actually developed an evidence-based trauma-specific healing modality for people with complex trauma that was used in top mental health facilities across the country. Throughout all of Jona's experiences, her extraordinary sensitivity has actually served as her internal GPS. And I know after speaking with her today, she is excited for you to be here as well. And hopefully our conversation will help you tune into and amplify your own sensitivity. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with Jona Genova. Jona Genova, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dr. V. I'm happy to be here.
It is so great. Sometimes when you are just out in the world, you meet some very beautiful people. And I met you at SoFi Stadium when you were there to support your friend and my new friend, Mike Diamond. And you were a beautiful soul that I felt like there was a automatic connection, and I couldn't wait to dive into more about what you did.
I felt that too. When we saw each other, yeah, that's fascinating that you say that, because you were signing books and there was something about your presence. I thought, I wonder about that person. I'm interested to know more. Yeah.
Oh, and now that I know that sensitivity is your superpower, I wonder, I'm wondering even more what you sensed. But before we get into that, there is a segment of my show. It's almost kind of game show style. So, look at me as the game show host. We are playing the 5 to Thrive, 5 quick questions to get to know Jona a little bit better. Each question is worth 1,000 points. And if you happen to win the 5 to Thrive, you get a healthy meal on me the next time we meet. So my question to you, Jona Genova, are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive?
I am ready.
Okay. Question number 1. As a child, what did you dream of being?
In charge.
Amazing. You and my 2-year-old daughter are the same, in charge. She is definitely the boss of me. Question number 2 was, as you were growing up, what sort of insight did you get either from a speech, a quote, a book, or something like that just made you completely rethink the world you were living in?
I read the book Seat of the Soul when I was in high school by Gary Zukov. Oprah talked about it. It was a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
And it changed my view on relationships, why people meet. It brought kind of a magic and a curiosity to every person I might meet.
Wow. Amazing. Question number 3 is, if you were in front of a stadium having to sing a karaoke song, which song would you pick?
Well, number 1, I would probably do everything possible to avoid singing a karaoke song. I would do anything in front of a stadium except sing. I would be a backup dancer. I would do anything. But I would have to pick a girl power song or a female empowerment song, maybe like Big Energy or something, or maybe something from Lizzo. Yeah.
Okay. I love Lizzo. Her beats are I can't not move when I hear a Lizzo song.
Yeah.
Awesome. 3,000 points thus far. Question number 4 is, if you were stuck in an elevator for 24 hours, knowing that you had enough food and water in there for 24 hours, what one thing from the outside world would you want with you?
A meditation cushion.
Ooh, all right. Beautiful. And question number 5 is, how does Jona want to be remembered?
I want my memory to be a felt presence, or a felt sense that people have. And that sense might be hopefully indescribable fully with words, but around a peace, a knowing, an okayness. Yeah, that's what I would like.
That is beautiful. As you were saying that, as you were thinking that, I just closed my eyes and I just felt the peace, which was, not surprising that peace was the first thing. Peace and calm. And those were the first 2 words that came out of your mouth. So that's beautiful. I was looking through some of your work, and you speak on sensitivity, the gift of sensitivity. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what exactly is this? What exactly is is sensitivity, how is that a superpower? So can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by sensitivity? And the second thing is how you discovered your gift of sensitivity.
So sensitivity, my definition of it,
Mm,
isn't being like overly emotional
mhm,
or can't handle feedback.
mhm.
It's not that. It is kind of awareness, a perceptivity, like Spidey senses,
I see. Okay.
feeling, seeing, and sensing more of what's going on than most people.
Yeah.
And in my work with more than 10,000 people now, I've identified that sensitivity is a spectrum. And some people are born more sensitive than others. So, in the spectrum, in the center of the bell curve, that's where most people fall.
Yeah.
And then on the extreme ends, we have those who are highly sensitive. There are fewer and fewer of those people. They
Mhm.
also tend to be high achievers. And the more sensitive, the more elite they are. And I discovered my sensitivity as a young person. I think this is why I wanted to be in charge, because I
Yeah.
sensed that what was going on wasn't really matching what was needed.
Mm,
And I couldn't figure out why people weren't getting it. Like, people meaning grown-ups. Like,
yeah.
why don't they understand this is what we need here? Why don't they understand that um, those people shouldn't be put in a room together for so long, or like something like that, like just
Mm,
these senses about what would work, what wouldn't, how things fit together. But I didn't identify it as sensitivity as a superpower. In fact, my early childhood report cards measured sensitivity. I
mm,
hope they do not do this. I do not think they do this anymore. And sensitivity was a bad thing.
mm.
And I would score very high on sensitivity. And then I would score really well in other areas. And I was very frustrated by this marker and being sort of criticized and misunderstood
Yeah.
for my sensitivity. So I kind of knew I had it then. I knew I wanted to have it. And I also knew that other people were telling me that it was bad.
Mm,
I discovered it, or sort of claimed it as a superpower, as an adult, when I was working with so many people and recognizing, wait a second, this is actually a gift. And the world right now, I believe, needs the answers that only highly sensitive people can access right now.
mm. So when you speak of sensitivity, do you think some people use the word intuition as being part of it? And how do you see intuition and sensitivity? The same, or maybe is intuition like part of what people sense?
I love this question because I've thought about this. I would say that people who are highly sensitive are probably often called or self-label as intuitive, but I don't see that they necessarily go hand in hand.
Mm, okay.
And another word that people think can be exchanged for sensitivity would be um, empath, or being an
Mm,
empath. And I do not see sensitivity and being an empath as the same thing.
mm,
Me, as a highly sensitive person, I do not think I know how other people are feeling.
mm,
In
okay.
fact, I have, and this is probably through my meditation training, but I have an openness for, there's no way I could possibly know how you're interpreting this. And my studies with Lisa Feldman Barrett, who developed the theory of constructed emotion, would back this up as well. Like, your lived experience is shaping how you are perceiving this, and your experience doesn't necessarily map onto mine. So my sensitivity, I feel things sort of on the level of interoception,
Mhm,
like changes in my own bodily reactions to what is happening, and also shifts in other people that
mm,
are maybe not as noticeable to most folks, it seems, like
right.
changes in heartbeat or your internal
Mm,
mechanisms. And so there could be an intuition could be a part of that, but I think intuition has sort of a sometimes like a judgment or a decision about like what's supposed to happen or what would be ideal. Um, yes. So I think that there's like the brain is predictive, or I agree with the scientists who say that the brain is predictive. So I recognize that that's happening, but I think highly sensitive people are even feeling into kind of what's here on that deeper level, the information that is feeding into the predictability of the brain. So it's sort of pre-intuitive sensing.
Amazing. Okay, so you knew you had this skill that probably other people didn't quite understand as you're moving through life. And I think I caught you when you were saying you didn't recognize it to be a superpower, and you started working with the high caliber athletes, CEOs that you work with. How do you bring that superpower and the work that you've done? How did you discover that to be a superpower? You know, when you're working with something, is it something you sense, and what do you use in that sensitivity that you can use to guide the person that you're helping?
I noticed, and I don't know if I should even put myself in the same category as the elite athletes that I work with. I mean, these are really extraordinary humans. I did notice that we were all a little weird, a little different,
Mhm.
did not quite fit in with others, felt like we didn't fit in, had some challenges. And I noticed that we all felt more of what was going on in the room than other people and didn't quite know what to do with this, but this was our lifetime experience. And I also noticed this with people so when I think of people who are on the end of the sensitivity spectrum, the highly sensitives, it's not just elite athletes and innovators that are there. I also place people who are people of color or people who come from oppressed groups who are needing to figure things out on their own without the privilege of information.
Mhm.
And they also, so while I think we're all born with different levels of sensitivity, I think our environments can hone and develop that sensitivity that's there.
Mm.
So these people who are needing to figure things out, who are different in some way, are also talking to each other silently, often in rooms. And maybe you've noticed this as a refugee or as an immigrant,
Yeah.
like you hear someone say something in the room and then you look to the other person of color in the room and you both kind of are like, that wasn't right. Or like, you feel that
Mhm.
too, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So being in the room with these elite athletes and other highly sensitives, I was noticing like the people who were engaging in those pre-verbal conversations with each other, even
Mhm.
though we were strangers, we all had this thing in common. That's how I came to notice it and say, oh, wait a second, this is actually our internal GPS that's
Mm.
guiding us to do things differently, to see possibilities other people don't see, to try things no one else may try.
Right. Here's the thing. So many people I feel have that internal calling, which I know that in children just naturally, comes alive. There's art. They naturally do what they're called to do, and they're in touch with what they feel and they act on it. Why do you suppose that culture and our environment around us, and potentially the older people that we interact with as we grow up, why do you think they kind of shut down that internal GPS? I feel like a lot of people, and I don't know from your own experience, where you are taught not to trust or believe what's guiding you from within.
This is where the intersection of anti-oppressive work occurs
Mm,
in my view,
yeah.
that there's sort of an in-group and an out-group. And in order to be in the in-group at this moment in time, or at least as it has been for the past few hundred years in our country and now globally, there are certain values that are held by everyone that define what the in-group is,
Yeah.
or that everyone is participating in on some level, right?
Yeah.
So even though I came out this like really creative mind. I was also good in school. And so I was pre-med and thought I needed to go that route in order to validate my intelligence, also to validate my grandparents' experience as immigrants and the hard work that they and my parents put in. Then I certainly should go to medical school instead of doing something that wasn't recognized as being as intelligent or as useful, and that something else might be helping people to develop um, their connection to others, or like the relational tissue of our groups, communities, right?
Mhm.
So I see that. I know I became wrapped up in that. I was raised in that. So then I participated in it and have perpetuated it. So not only was I getting messaging that there's sort of a right way and a wrong way if you want to be a healthy, successful human being,
Yeah. Mhm.
I was co-designing that with, and even now the language that I'm using, right, is to
Mm.
like appear credible. So it's a sticky situation that we're in
Yeah.
right now.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast. So it sounds like we do have these inner knowing and GPS, but also, as I guess a human being, have desires to want to be loved and to be accepted and not to be abandoned, that have us maybe, turn off our own intuition so that we belong. It's wild stuff. Now, I know you work with high achievers, and you've got a framework that's the focus and flow integration. What is it like to work with you, and what, what's the type of work that you're working with high achievers, and why do they get the results that they do working with you?
So for high achievers, micro adjustments matter.
Mm.
Right? They're
Right.
functioning in this realm where just like the tiny adjustment, precision, and accuracy make a really big difference.
Mm.
And because my sensitivity is so like acute, I really enjoy
Mm.
working in that realm because that's where I get to be in my zone of fun.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's why I like the high achiever realm, because that's like the dance floor that we're on. And
Mm.
the work that I do with them is based on the focus and flow integration model, which, Oprah says sometimes, this I know to be true. And for a long time, I didn't want to claim that I knew anything to be true because I wanted to have a certain humility. And then a few years ago, I decided, okay, I'm of an age where I should claim to like all of this lived experience. I get to claim something now. So this is the model I'm asserting that I know to be true at this point, and I may change my mind or learn more in the future. But at this moment, this is how I see it. These three things I've come to know to be true. One is that we are all pure limitlessness, every being. And this comes from my study of Tibetan Buddhism for nearly 30 years, the premise of emptiness. And sometimes people take emptiness as like nothingness, but really it's pure potential. It's anything could arise out of this.
Yes.
Okay, so we are all limitless in that is our essence, a limitlessness. And we're all sort of made from the same seeds. Like what's really here are primordial qualities of love, compassion, persistence, joy, creativity, laughter, strength, perseverance, and so on, right?
Yeah.
And who we are and what we become with that is individual to us. But that's really what's here. So then what gets in the way of us expressing our limitless nature? Because very few of us are able to do that.
Yeah.
This touches on the last question that you asked, like, well, what's getting in the way of that internal GPS?
Yeah.
I see this as layers of limiting beliefs or obscurations of the mind that are making us conditioning. Yeah. Making us temporarily blind to what's here. So what's here is our pure essence.
Yeah.
And then society or ourselves place these limiting beliefs on us. And this is true for everyone. And some limiting beliefs are relatively easy to clear away, heal, get rid of. So for the high achiever, let's take an athlete, for example. Someone says, you can't do that. And that person says, yes, I can, watch me. And they use that, that judgment as fuel to wake up early, grind it out, do the thing, right? Pretty easy to clear away that limiting belief. But then for the high achiever, we get into the realm of what about those limiting beliefs that aren't spoken with words? What about the impressions that people give us, or the expectations and unspoken messaging that we're getting from society? What about what happened to us before we had words, or what happened to us that we don't remember? So I call all that the pre-verbal. And so my work with people through the focus and flow integration model is sort of a recognition and agreement that we are limitless in our nature. That's our essence, that there are these limiting beliefs. The elite athlete has probably cleared away most of the verbal, obvious ones. Conventional medicine can get a lot of those, talk therapy can. But then where our real work is in that pre-verbal realm. Like, how do we get to the unspoken stuff? Like, how do you do that? If you can't get at it with words, how do you go there? So this is our work together, is healing those limiting beliefs, oftentimes the ones that lie in the pre-verbal realm, so that their essence, their limitlessness can be expressed in all areas of their life.
That's amazing. So much I want to ask, but there are different forms and methods that we know that's out there. Some of it just entirely energetic work, some neurolinguistic type of programming type work. Others are more sort of somatic work using breath work and things like that. How does it work with what you do? Is it sort of feeling in and energetically clearing it, or what does that look like tangibly?
It's difficult to see. Like, if you were to observe it, you may not see what's going on, and you may not hear it because it's the pre-verbal plane. But what I'm doing in essence is a piece of sustainable compassion training, which is an adaptation of Tibetan Buddhist meditation practices developed by John McCransky, who is one of my former college professors, mentors, friends. And over the years, he, myself, and others have contributed to the development of this process. And there are 3 modes in the process. One mode is the receptive mode, where we are receiving, we are resonating with the loving qualities that are here in any moment, either in a caring moment or from our spiritual benefactors. And then we may go into the extending mode where those qualities are now resonant within us and possibly resonating with others. And then we can stabilize in this. So I may be doing something, like I developed an energy healing modality that was used in treatment facilities. I'm doing something there, but really what I think is happening is a kind of presencing, a kind of compassionate presencing, which is like the meditation in action, where it is a caring moment happening between two people where they are hopefully feeling able to be all that they are in that moment in a place of okayness. And that's possible because of my years and years of meditation with people who have shown me how to do this and who have done this for me. And also probably because of my like acute sensitivity. It's almost like a non-reaction from me, no matter what is happening for the other person, that allows anything to come up and to be healed in this space of okayness. I think that's really what's happening. And that might, so the session might look like talking. It might look like having lunch together. It might look like me hovering hands over someone to do an energy healing. But I think the thing that is happening is this Buddhist practice, I think, which is also seen in many other spiritual traditions. In fact, all that I'm aware of.
Yeah, when I talk to you, there's almost I kind of get maybe a little of what you mean. There's almost sort of like a space of non-judgmental safetiness that is allowing for whatever to come up and have that be okay, to be able to almost recognize those little tiny layers of things that we normally have to interact through the world. We could slough that part off to access who we really are, is my sense of how something like that might work. But I'm getting that just from my conversation with you. So how does somebody know? Do you believe that many people have this gift of sensitivity that is just hiding? Or do you think certain people have it or they don't?
I used to think anyone could be sensitive, but now I embrace diversity and know we need different types of people. Like we need people who aren't quite as sensitive in the world, who can take different types of action, who see different solutions to the problems that we all face. And I would say that there are far fewer highly sensitive people. And again, I'm not talking about empaths because there's the whole HSP thing. This is different. This is like that awareness of like on the interoception level, like sensing changes and things. I haven't thought about like a percentage, but certainly the majority is less sensitive, and the world is built for those people. So they often look, if you might know that you're highly sensitive if you feel like people do not get you and they look at you like, what are you talking about? And you look at them like, how do you not get this? How are you not seeing this? It's so obvious. That might be an indication that you're highly sensitive. I think the real work is not in making everyone highly sensitive, because again, we need the diversity. Like we need biodiversity, like diversity is healthy. So I think the real work is creating understanding and creating a label for this and an awareness, so that when it's going on in a group, we can appreciate the highly sensitive voice that's in the room and say, oh, they're seeing something I'm not, what might be here? And then the highly sensitive person can say, I'm seeing something you're not. Let's try this on. Not that the highly sensitive person is always going to have the answer that we want, but recognizing that they're really seeing something here and that this could be valuable. So let's dialogue about it. Let's recognize how we're all having different perceptions.
I can see how working with you really is able to sort of unlock that very first tenet of your work, which is limitlessness, I suppose. Is that what inspires you to do the work that you do for others?
Yeah, you could tell, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't want people to lose this. And because the world isn't built for us, I know, at least for myself, it's really hard to hold on to. And I want to create a space for the highly sensitives because, like I said early on, I have this sense that highly sensitives are the ones who can access the answers that we need to the world's most critical problems in this moment.
Mm.
Because we need creative solutions to the climate crisis, to poverty, right? Like these are not formulas. Formulas are not going to give us the answer. I don't even, I mean, I'm optimistic about what AI could do for us. It's pretty exciting, but I think that I feel like there's something spiritual about the human experience that the solution is meant to come from something within us,
Mm.
out of love, really, for others.
I love that. I resonate with that. Um, how do people find out a little bit more about sort of your work? Do you work strictly, one-on-one with people in your focus and flow integration? Do you also work to potentially even allow and develop and nurture this sensitivity superpower with those that might be inclined or think that they have that as well?
I do. So the bulk of my work is one-on-one, because each person is different. So it allows the creative responsiveness from me in those sessions. But I'll also do work with, I say teams, not just athletic teams, but also organizational teams, helping them to understand, each individual to understand where they fall on the sensitivity spectrum,
Mm.
and then how to embrace what is in that room, what their resources are in terms of sensitivity. And then often leadership teams, those folks tend to be highly sensitive. So supporting them and maintaining their awareness within systems that don't always encourage that kind of outside of the box thinking.
Beautiful. And where do people find you for your work?
My website is my name, jonagenova.com, which I'm sure you'll have someplace
Yep.
typed out. And then also on Instagram, I post there, not enough, hopefully more in the future, which a lot of people say, but that my handle is Jona Genova, JonaGenova.
Oh, please follow this beautiful soul, everybody. My last question to you is one that I end all podcasts with, is with everything that's happened in your life, with all the different modalities that you've seen, that's out there, what has been your best medicine?
I wasn't sure how I was going to answer that until this very moment. And that is embracing how I'm different.
Mm.
And like leaning into that, like what makes me unique, what makes me different.
Really just sounds like your best medicine being you. Um,
Acceptance, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah,
yeah,
accepting what's here.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's beautiful. Jona, thank you so much for being on the Thrive State podcast. Your energy, your soul, your beingness is very well received. You are the last podcast of 4 in a long day. And for whatever reason, there is a peace, a calm, a delight that I'm ending this podcast with. And I think your energy or whatever you're doing is allowing that to come up in me. So thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been such a joy to have this time with you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive state, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive state. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.